It's nice to be able to connect with you this way. Again, as I mentioned before, feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation. I do have several other customer success specialists on the line with us today, so they're able to answer questions throughout the presentation. Also, I'll be very mindful of your time here. We're going to go through a lot of the basics of, as an administrator, those type of housekeeping items you might want to know for the website. And then we'll open it up for any questions, or if you have something specific, you could ask it at that time as well. Okay, so this is our Getting Started Administrator training. I'm going to go over the agenda in just a moment, but I do want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Onawa Biela, and I see by some of the attendees that have entered here, I have communicated with some of you, which is really nice to see familiar logins there. I've been with Let's Go Learn over 2 years now, and previously a teacher for 13, and also worked in an administrator capacity at my last school as well. That's actually where I was introduced to Let's Go Learn, where we revised our RTI, and we used this as an integral part of assessing our students. So I had some firsthand training as well. Other customer success specialists that you might work with have a variety of experiences and advice and things like that. We've talked to other schools and administrators, so feel free to reach out if you're wondering, how other schools are assessing or how they're making different things work. We might have some tricks of the trade to share with you that way. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I am going to open up our 1-800 number, and then also just a general help that you can email. You should have heard, as you have your account, you will be assigned a customer success specialist. They'll be in contact with you, or feel free to reach out and say, you'd like some more support, or you're interested in perhaps looking at customized training for you or your staff. So that's something else that we can also discuss as you continue on with Let's Go Learn. Okay, so we are going to go over just a brief introduction. Depending if you're brand new or if you're a veteran user, it's nice to kind of bring us back to what makes Let's Go Learn unique. We're going to talk about the nitty-gritty of managing teachers and really moving students, get them where they need to be, finding deactivated students and so forth. And then we're going to just touch on the reports. I want you to be aware of our new data portal system, so you're familiar with that when you log in. We do have additional reporting webinars where we're going to go more in depth, and we'll really dedicate that time to looking at the specifics of reporting. So today I'll show you, on a few that you might want to take a look at now, and then please take a look at that webinar coming up next week for more in depth. So here at Let's Go Learn, we like to start with the big picture, where we fit in this model of A and I. And the A and I stand for assessment and instruction. So continually throughout the school day, or as administrators, we're looking at our what are we assessing? And then we're changing our instruction. Teachers are using groups, you're using programs and other resources, curriculum, you're instructing them, and then again we're assessing. So it's constantly that cycle to make sure students are really getting what they need, and we really can pinpoint those instructional points. That is where Let's Go Learn fits. Over here on the bottom left, we are really a diagnostic, a true diagnostic assessment. So you will see exactly on the scope of either reading or math, whatever assessments are both that you're using, where your students fall. Either if they're falling below, you want to know why exactly, or if they're doing well. So we'll take a little closer look here about what makes Let's Go Learn unique. I know you work with many assessments. We have different assessments for different reasons. What makes Let's Go Learn unique is we really answer why. So versus a norm reference score, I know, at the end of the year, or maybe this summer, we get those test results, and it's important for accountability measures. But if I'm the teacher and I just see they're falling far below, it's difficult for me to know why and where to start at that instructional point. So this assessment really will tell you why they're struggling or doing well, and it's really exciting because that's really designed to guide instruction. So just an overview of the standards model. You're just going to know if it's a 4th grade test, just along those 4th grade skills. So I'm not going to dive into anything below or above to know what their instructional points are. Whereas the diagnostic model, you'll see here the line is moving up and down. It's going to adjust. So, for example, Dora is K-12. You're going to see a long K-12 reading exactly where they fall. This is just a slide of the overview of the assessments that we do offer. If there is something that you're looking at or different initiatives that you're thinking for next year, there might be a way that we can assist with that, especially if your students are already using one or more of our assessments. So all the way from Dora Spanish, we do have a phonemic awareness assessment designed for the younger emergent reader, Adam, and then DOMA, pre-algebra, and algebra. So at any time, if you'd like to take a look at one of those, please let us know, and we can set up that opportunity for you. All right, so we'll pop back to that. Don't feel like you need to write everything down there, but I will go back to that screen so you have our general help. And then again, of course, we would encourage you to respond then to the customer success specialist that's probably reached out to you with maybe an email checking in, and then that way we really know what your needs are. And this is a really great opportunity at this time of year because you're probably planning, getting ready maybe for that final assessment and starting to think about, how you want your professional development to look next year, or perhaps how your assessment track will go and things like that. So we're definitely here to support you with those decisions. All right, so we're going to pop right into our website. For the sake of this training, we are going to use just a general demo account. So some of the data might look a little bit different, but know that you can, all the same things that we talk about, you'll be able to do with your administrator account as well. So when you first log in to Let's Go Learn, you'll go to letsgolearn.com. You're going to land on this home page. And Let's Go Learn is organized with tabs. So we're going to talk about what to do under those tabs. And as the administrator, you have a different role and some of the things that you might actually be already facing that you need to kind of take cleaning up the account and things like that with teachers and movement of students. When you first land on your home page, we want to direct you to the far left. Those are your helpful links. So things we talk about today or things that teachers might want a reminder or need a refresher on, please direct them to this area. We have videos, tip sheets, resources for you to use that are just very quick and easy to approach. So, teacher, you have a new teacher and you want to get them on board. We have a quick teacher getting started. You could direct them here and they could follow those steps in order to get used to what Let's Go Learn has to offer and a little bit more about it. I also really recommend the welcome letter for staff, or perhaps if you're communicating with families regarding diagnostic assessments, and some families aren't that familiar with it. So, getting some general information about how that works and how it came about, the welcome letter is a start. Development Center here, I'm the third hyperlink down. This is nice too as your teachers are progressing and going along with Let's Go Learn. This really follows as the teacher or administrator would use the data. So it's also organized with tabs here. I'm going across the top. We have a home. It's going to talk a little bit about what we've got going on right now. What's really nice about this is you have your webinars. I had mentioned earlier that there's some additional webinars coming up, so you're able to log in and register for those here, so you can see everything that's offered to you. You have a quick getting started, so a quick 9 minutes and a 3 minutes, and that's a nice thing for teachers maybe to view before you meet with them. And then it goes on, navigating reports, interpreting data, and then it will pop you back out to that video support library with all of those short videos on getting started. You also have an option here at the last option here on helpful links is to request support. So what this will allow you to do, it's asking me to sign in, it won't ask you that. It will give you the form to fill out if you have something specific going on with your site. This will help expedite any issues. You'll be prompted to fill in your organization, your number, your contact, all the things that we would need to know. And then that way we have a dedicated team that can review that and get back to you as soon as possible. So know that that is an option for you. I also want to point out the teacher toolkit. We really want teachers to be familiar with these test admin scripts. That's the first link below. Here I'm over here on the far left-hand side. Before administering the assessments, or here as you're getting ready, maybe for your end of the year, we want teachers to prepare the students. It prepares the teacher with the logistics on what they need to know, and then also it has verbiage for the students. You know, they might not be familiar with seeing an I don't know button, and so it addresses those type of things so that they feel really prepared to take the assessment. So those are located here on the drop-down. Also under the teacher toolkit, I mentioned before, you have tip sheets. So if you prefer to have those printed out versus the videos, you have access to that. I do want to point out on the right-hand side, in our GoToWebinar dialog box, you have a handout where there is a tip sheet already loaded for you. So at a time that's convenient, either now you could click on that. That'll open up to your computer. And this is a lot of what we're going to talk about today, just managing, managing users. So you can have what we talk about today there saved to your computer. All right, well, we're going to move right along. We're going to go into our site admin. That is our next tab over. And we're going to talk a little bit about teachers and managing your teachers. You might want to move the GoToWebinar box or minimize it. You have a couple of those options over on the right-hand side. And then again, if something comes up and I'm moving a little quickly, please let us know, and we can address those questions as they come up. We want this to be very meaningful for you if you have something on your mind. Okay, so under the site admin, this is where you're going to manage your teachers. So you'll notice when I first log in here, I see the same way that Let's Go Learn's organized for students. I see that information for my teachers. If you quickly need to get a password for a teacher, you see I have their first name, last name, login. I have the option to show their password. So if for some reason a teacher needs to get logged in and they forgot that, you can quickly take a look at that in order to help them get logged in. As the administrator, you can also log in through your admin page as the teacher. So if I go ahead and look on my far right-hand side, we're going to talk about these features that are available, these 3 buttons that are available under each teacher login. The first thing we can do is quickly log in as a teacher. So you know that key. Now I'm in Midge Brown's class. So if you want to take a look at some reporting on her teacher side, take a look at her assessments and see who's tested, you can quickly do that from your admin account. You'll notice here, I'm over here on the far right-hand side, if I click Exit Account, it's going to pop me right back now to my admin, and I'm back to these teachers. So that's just a quick way, without having to know everybody's login and password, that you can jump into different accounts. You also have the option, now I'm the second button down, you can edit the teacher. So if you have something specific, perhaps this teacher has moved positions, and you might want to disable certain products. They actually won't need the reading products anymore. They're moving to, math. You can here edit that at the individual level, or also add permissions as well. The last button here on the right-hand side, you have the option to disable a teacher. It gives you a reminder, are you sure you want to deactivate this user? So this might be important if you do have a teacher leave at the end of the year and you don't, they would no longer need access to Let's Go Learn and all that student account information. You actually can deactivate that user. So now I'm on that main page, and here's all my teachers listed, and I do not see Midge anymore because she has been deactivated. Now, sometimes, maybe she was on maternity leave, or for whatever reason, you have other teachers returning or perhaps moving to another school in your district. You can actually find those deactivated teachers and reinstate them. So you have a couple of ways to search for teachers. Here, I'm over here on the far left-hand side. I can search for teachers here. Say if I have a big district where I'm overseeing many people, this can be really nice to do a quick search that way. I can also search for active or deactivated. So if I go ahead and take a look, I know I deactivated Mitch earlier. I would click Find, and now I see her in my deactivated list. From this page, I have the option now, instead of deactivate, my last option here on the right-hand side is actually to enable the user. Now there's no one left in my deactivated, so I'll go back to my active list, find, and then Midge is back with the rest of the group there. So that's just some managing that you might want to have, especially cleaning up and thinking of the end of the year or as roles and positions change. Now, sorry for scrolling around on you there. I just want to make sure if you do need to move the GoToWebinar box, you can do that because we are looking at some buttons here on the right-hand side. The first button I want to draw your attention to is adding a user. So this can come up many times throughout the year. You might need to add somebody specific to the program. So this will allow you to do that. You would need to fill in the form with their information, and then you would determine what access they would have, or if you're going to disable certain things that they perhaps wouldn't need on their account. Okay. Also, depending on how your school is organized, you may have Atom. We have many schools and districts who use Dora and Atom school-wide, and so every teacher would be responsible for assessing students under that. You do have the option over here on the far right for bulk permissions, and this will allow me to give everyone in the bulk way, so all of my teachers, access to that assessment. This also might be helpful, say you add on a product and say, okay, we have Atom, but we are moving forward. We have many schools who are adding on different assessments for next year. So instead of individually giving each of those to teachers, you can just go ahead and I would click Dora, and then I would enter, and then everyone would have permission for that assessment. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move on. I'm going to take a peek here at our questions. All right. We are going to continue on now to managing the students. So we've taken a look at teachers, how to see what permissions they have, finding them, deactivating them. And in a similar fashion, we need to take a look at the overview of those students and how you would find them and so forth. So instead of moving to this tab, we're actually going to end up on reporting, where we'll touch on some of the reports I want to point out to you during this session. But over here on the far right, I have the option for a Manage dropdown. Under this Manage dropdown, my first option is the student roster. When I click into this roster, because this is an admin account, I don't have students listed for the administrator. What I would need to do here on the right-hand side is that option that says Show All Students. So I'm hovering over it now. If I click Show All Students, this will show all students that are associated with my site. So this gives you a great overview. If you need to quickly make some changes, and as the administrator overseeing that, you can view all the students listed there. Over here on the far left, I do have the option to show 100 at a time, which can be really helpful, especially for larger districts. So know that you have some of those filtering options that are available. Back here under Show Your Students, I have the option for search. So you might want to find a specific student, you know that they've left, and you want to go ahead and take care of that. You can do that from here. And you can also search for deactivated and active. So currently we're looking at our active students, but the same way that we looked for deactivated, you can actually reinstate a student who's been deactivated. So it's nice when you're running reports or perhaps just the management of your program to deactivate students who are no longer with your district. But of course we do know sometimes students are able to return, and you'd want to be able to keep their information with them. So you have an option to search that way. If I look at the deactivated, I do have one student here, grade 8, they've been deactivated. Over here on the far right-hand side, I have the option to enable that user again. So that's a quick way to search. I'm going to go back to our active list and pull up the group. All right, if you need to add a new student, so somebody's entered into your program, the second button below student roster is Add a Student. Similar idea, in the same fashion that you would enter a new teacher, you would do the same for a student. You'd fill out the required information. you can actually select to enroll them in a specific class here if you already know where they'll be placed, and then you go ahead and select Add Student. And then that would enroll them and then place them in the class that you selected. It does say, let's see here. Nope, that's exactly what you would do. Okay. We're going to go now to View Classes. This will give you the overview of this school. We can see 2016 grade 1. I can see the owner, and I can see if that's an active class. So if for some reason on the managing classes side, if you have instructed, or to clean those up somehow, you want to close some things out, you have the option to do that. So you have the overview of all of those classes listed. You also have a teacher roster. So what this will do is actually, oops, sorry, I'm going to go back to our teacher roster. The teacher roster actually pops us back into our site admin tab. So it's just another way to get there. So if you need to quickly see, who's on your roster, which teachers are there, which teacher might you want to place that student in, that gives you another way to access the teacher roster. Okay, I'm going to pause here for just a moment. Okay, and you guys let me know if there's any questions that I should address on the microphone here. Thanks, you guys. All right. I also want to point out here from the roster, show all students, manage students that administrators might find helpful, is on this page. You can quickly add students or take students out of classes. So you'll notice a drop-down appears. If I start typing, I will see Spanish pops up. So it's really nice if you know the beginning of the class that you want to enter, but also know the drop-down is there. I see all of my teachers and their classes, so I can place them in. So if I have John Smith just entered, I know that they are grade 4 for 2016. They're going in this demo class. I could go ahead and select that quickly. Now that student will also appear in that class. So something to know about Let's Go Learn is that the students, they're only entered once. So we really want to make sure that their data is clean. They're only entered into the system once, but they can reside in multiple classes. So this student might also be in that Spanish class. So we're going to place them there in this teacher's Spanish class. So that's a quick way if you need to get the students where they need to be. The same way you can use this to take students out. So if actually John Smith isn't going to be in that Spanish class, I can simply click it, backspace or delete, and then that student would be removed from that class. So I find administrators I work with use this often to place students, especially if you're overseeing some of the intervention programs and things like that, where you might quickly want to place students in certain classes. Okay, so we've talked about the main things as far as housekeeping goes and managing. Under Site Admin, we have our teacher roster. That's where we have our logins, the permissions that the teachers have access to, and how you can quickly jump into those accounts and also edit or disable them. Also, we've talked about manage, the similar thing with the student roster. We can deactivate, we can activate, we can place into students, and the management side, or place into teachers, the management side of that manage tab and working with students. The last thing we're going to touch on today is the reporting tab. So we're that third tab in. And what's really exciting is we have some new reporting features, and we'll definitely dive more into that in our future webinars where we dedicate the entire time to looking at reports. But I encourage you now, especially since it's the end of the year or getting towards the end of the year, to start looking at what's available and run some of those reports and see what will be helpful. Or if you have questions, please reach out to us and let us know. So we have reports organized under usage and export. So one of the things that administrators often find helpful is this first one under usage is actually a site assessment completion report. So if it's, you have a window of time, which we really recommend windows of testing. So you'd say, okay, it's May, this date through this date, they need to take their DORA or ADAM assessments. You could then run a report and make sure that students have actually completed that. It will show you if they're in progress or if they've been queued up and that's sitting ready for them to take that. So that lets you follow up with teachers or students as necessary, making sure everyone is where they need to be as far as assessment completion goes. Under usage also, we have the option for historical reports. When you click to historical reports, you'll notice that now you have moved to the new data portal. This is exciting, and that's why we're dedicating specific webinars to navigating the data portal. A lot more reporting capabilities and ways to organize large amounts, large districts, amount of information very quickly. You'll notice you have similar tabs here across the top. We do have a home tab, reports and exports. So reports will allow you to pull up right on your computer different ways to demonstrate the data, perhaps in a graph format, in performance bands, profiles, and things like that. The exports will allow you to actually export that Excel file right to your computer. So if you need data in a different way, you need raw scores. You will also get a drop-down. You want raw scores report, pre and post gains would be an export, usage. So if you're using the EDGE program, you can quickly pull that instructional usage and see where you are. That can all be downloaded right to your computer. So we're going to go ahead and start with reports. And I just want to point out a few that you know, are really exciting to take a look at, especially if you haven't had the opportunity. Performance bands, you can pull up for any of the assessments there. And what this will do is group your students into emergent, proficient, and above categories. So you can either pull this for a beginning of the year just to see where your class, your school as a whole, how they're performing across those measures. And that could help you direct resources, training, additional professional development, and things like that. What performance bands also allows you to do is compare it throughout the year, that first test compared to a second test. So as you're getting towards the end of the year testing, which we really recommend that you do, you can take a look at how the students have made gains overall as a whole. And that's a really nice graphic chart to show you those gains. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pop to exports. Some of the, you also, as I mentioned, you have raw scores report. The pre and post gains becomes really helpful towards the end of the year, but you can pull it mid-year. So many districts are pulling, are doing a beginning, mid, or an end of year, or depending on how your cycles go as far as you know, instructional grouping, you can pull those gains reports. So this will send a report directly to your computer. You can see that those gains for each of those measures and how students are performing. So that one's really exciting to take a look at as well. Okay. So I'm not going to spend too much time here in the data portal. I do want you to be aware that we have many things to offer you there. If you do see something or you have specific questions, and maybe your school runs on a different type of year, if you have specific questions like that, let us know. I will pause here if you have any questions right now regarding the reports, because I want to make sure that we can address those. I know that we're getting up to our time to close. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bounce us back here to our Let's Go Learn. Under the reporting, you also have the export option, which will pop you again to your data portal. So just know that you are entering the data portal. All of your information will be there and be able to be pulled down very quickly as you need it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pop back to the home page. I like to leave us here just as a quick reminder. Anything that we talk about today, we probably have a tip sheet or a short video. Direct your teachers to here. Also, I failed to mention before, we do have our announcements page. This is another quick way to take a look at our webinar calendar for things that are coming up. If you have new teachers entering, it can be a nice way for them to get organized with the program, or new administrators and so forth using our system. Also, don't forget the handout before you pop out today. We do have a tip sheet located under the handouts. If you click the little plus sign over here on the right-hand side under your webinar box, go ahead and click on that Managing Users, and you'll have the tip sheet for today's webinar there listed for you. I'm also going to leave us here with our Let's Go Learn general help. If you have specific questions, let us know. We're really excited to hear your feedback and to be ending the year with you and getting ready for next year or perhaps any summer programs. Okay, so much for joining. If you have any questions, please feel free to stay back. I'm going to go ahead and open up the microphone, so if you prefer to stay on mute, go ahead and mute yourself. Otherwise, if you prefer to just type in your question, you can do that. As I mentioned before, we have almost all of our customer success specialists in here in this webinar. So if you have any questions, you have a wealth of information at your fingertips here. So please feel free to type that in, either in the questions or the chat, and we can address those for you. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining today. I hope you have a really wonderful weekend and rest of your Friday. Thanks so much, everyone.